Mud clung to boots as distant drums rolled, and the village square held its breath beneath a bruised dawn. The third-person voice watched Daniel Ward steady his shaking hands. "Colonel Marcus Hale said, 'End this quickly.'" A bound prisoner stared back, and recognition stabbed like ice. Evan Cross shifted behind a line of soldiers, eyes down. Lily Hart peeked from a shattered doorway, breath thin and fast. Daniel tasted iron and rain, while lanterns guttered in the wind. Marcus said, "History rewards resolve." Daniel felt the words grind against bone. Sophia Moreau lingered near the well, half shadow, unreadable. Daniel said, "There are civilians here." Marcus smiled without warmth. "Mercy wastes time." Leather straps creaked. A church bell tolled once, then silence pressed. Daniel lifted the pistol and met the prisoner's pleading gaze. Lily covered her mouth. Evan whispered, "Orders are orders." The storm built over slate roofs, and Daniel's thumb froze on the hammer. He heard his heartbeat as loud as the drums. Daniel said, "I will not shoot an unarmed man." Marcus stepped closer, voice ablade. "Then, I will." Daniel moved, choosing the path that might damn him, yet spare the living. The standoff dissolved into orders barked and boots scraping wet stone as squads pulled back to cover. Daniel holstered the pistol, jaw set, and the square exhaled. Marcus said, "Defiance spreads like rot." Daniel kept silent, watching doors close. Lily slipped from the doorway, clutching a torn satchel. Evan shuffled papers into a tin box, shoulders curled inward. Sophia traced a fingertip across the mossed well, measuring patterns like maps. Daniel said, "Clear the square and tend the wounded." Marcus laughed softly, brittle as frost. "You command nothing here." Thunder rolled across the hills. A bell rope tapped wood in the wind. Daniel walked to the prisoner and cut the rope binding him to the post. "Aye." The man sagged, whispering thanks that dissolved in rain. Evan said, "Patrols report movement in the orchards." Marcus's eyes gleamed. "Then bait them with fear." Daniel flinched, then squared his shoulders. He chose to shield the living, whatever storm followed. Inside a looted chapel, candles guttered on a cracked altar, while rain tapped the roof like a metronome. Daniel knelt by a wounded courier and checked the bandage. Lily said, "They set traps on the road." Evan hovered near the door, eyes on shifting shadows. Marcus paced the nave, boots loud, voice low. "We strike before dusk." Sophia leaned against a column, unreadable as stone. Daniel said, "We evacuate first." Marcus smiled without warmth. "You safeguard ghosts." A hymn page drifted from a splintered pew and stuck to Daniel's sleeve. The courier coughed, words breaking. "Ambush beyond the orchards." Evan swallowed hard and looked anywhere but Daniel's face. Lily's hands shook, yet she steadied the basin. Daniel said, "No more deaths for pride." Marcus's silence turned heavy. Thunder grumbled. A candle drowned in its own wax, smoke threading the stale air. The orchard path twisted between black trees, leaves glossy with rain, carts abandoned mid-trade. Daniel moved at the front, coat flaring. Lily kept close, eyes scanning hedgerows. Evan said, "Tracks split near the brook." Marcus followed with a squad, posture precise. Sophia drifted along the fence line, gaze measuring distances. A shattered crate leaked red apples into the mud like spilled warnings. Daniel said, "Hold. Listen." The wind hissed through wet branches. A faint clink of metal rose and fell. Marcus said, "Press on." Daniel lifted a fist and the line froze. Lily pointed to a tripwire glistening like a silver hair. Evan exhaled a thin, guilty sound. Daniel cut the wire with his knife and pocketed the pin. Marcus's jaw flexed. "Delay invites disaster." Daniel replied, "So does haste." Somewhere ahead, a crow startled, and the trees shivered. They reached a stone bridge where the brook foamed white and cold against carved arches. Daniel studied the span, reading scars where charges had once been set. Lily said, "Footprints double back." Evan produced a crumpled map, voice thin. "A kill zone." Marcus said, "We cross now." Sophia scanned the ridge, eyes narrowing. Daniel stepped onto the first arch and raised his hand. "Civilians first, soldiers later." Marcus's laugh was quiet and dangerous. "You chase ghosts of virtue." The wind shifted, bringing the smell of smoke. Lily pointed downstream, where families huddled under tarps. Daniel said, "Form a cordon. Move them." Evan hesitated, then relayed the order. Marcus watched, silent, eyes like flint. The brook hissed on red-stained metal buried in silt. Daniel felt history's weight and chose to bear it. The chapel walls groaned as wind pushed through broken shutters, carrying the smell of ash and wet earth. Daniel Ward sat at the altar's edge, hands clasped tight, as though in prayer. Lily Hart pressed a damp cloth against the courier's brow. Evan Cross shifted near the doorway, his boots restless on cracked stone. Colonel Marcus Hale said, "We move at dusk." Daniel's throat tightened. He saw Lily's trembling fingers and thought of his own sister. Sophia Moreau stepped from the shadows, voice low and calm. "There are still families hiding near the river." Marcus sneered, "Civilians do not win wars." Daniel stood slowly, rain dripping from his collar. He said, "They are not pawns." A candle sputtered, throwing their faces into uneven light. Evan whispered, "We cannot hold both paths." The bell above clanged once, as if struck by unseen hands. Daniel pressed his palms flat on the altar, breath steady. He said, "Then I will choose the path that spares them, even if it breaks me." Marcus's glare cut through the silence. The chapel groaned again, like a wounded thing. The square filled again with soldiers, armor clinking beneath gray skies. Marcus strode at the center, cloak heavy with rain, voice carrying. "Glory waits for the bold," he declared. Daniel stood opposite, boots sunk in mud. His eyes locked on Lily, who handed bread to a child too young to understand war. Sophia whispered from the edge, "Their lives are tinder." Evan shuffled forward, carrying orders sealed in wax, face pale. Daniel said, "Your victories feed graves, not history." Marcus's lips curled. "History is written by survivors, not dreamers." Drums echoed against stone walls. The crowd of soldiers shifted uneasily, some glancing at the civilians clustered under torn cloth. Daniel tightened his fists until the skin whitened. He said, "We are not beasts, not while I breathe." Rain slicked his hair as thunder rolled above, shaking the air. A banner tore loose, snapping like a gunshot. Marcus smirked, unmoved. "Then bleed for your honor, Daniel." The makeshift infirmary stank of blood and damp wool. Daniel knelt by a boy with a bandaged arm, whispering comfort. Lily fetched water, her eyes bright with fear but steady with resolve. Evan hovered with ledger and quill, recording names of the wounded. Marcus entered, boots clicking, gaze hard. "Why waste time?" he said coldly. Daniel lifted his chin. "Because these lives matter." Sophia leaned near the tent's entrance, hood drawn low. "He is right," she murmured, though her tone carried weight beyond agreement. Marcus stepped closer, voice cutting. "Compassion weakens a commander." Daniel replied, "Indifference destroys him." A soldier groaned, echoing like a prayer. Lily squeezed the boy's hand, whispering, "Hold on." Rain pattered through torn canvas. Evan wrote shakily, lips pressed tight. Marcus said, "They cannot march, and they will slow us all." Daniel said, "Then I will carry them myself." The words hung like iron in the damp air. The orchard edge glimmered with fog as dawn broke pale and cold. Daniel stood with arms crossed, scanning the trees. Lily gathered herbs into a satchel, her hands shaking but determined. Evan approached with hesitant steps, unfolding a letter marked with an unfamiliar crest. Marcus demanded. "What is that?" Evan faltered, saying, "News of movement near the ridge." Sophia's gaze sharpened, following every twitch. Daniel snatched the paper, reading words blurred with rain. His eyes darkened. "This is not from our scouts." Marcus's jaw set. "Then, someone leaks secrets." Lily gasped softly. Daniel stepped toward Evan. "Where did this come from?" Evan stammered, sweat tracing his temple. Sophia broke the silence. "Truth is the rarest weapon here." Marcus barked, "Silence!" Birds startled, scattering through wet branches. Daniel's voice dropped low. "Lies will drown us faster than steel." The paper wilted in his hand, heavy as betrayal. The riverbank swelled with runoff, muddy waters rushing under broken timbers. Families huddled on the far side, children crying. Daniel removed his coat and stepped into the stream, boots sinking, shoulders squared. Lily shouted, "It's too strong!" Daniel turned, voice steady. "Then, it must be crossed." Evan carried a rope, tying it hastily to an oak, hands trembling. Marcus stood, arms folded, expression carved from stone. "This is folly," he said. Sophia watched silently, eyes narrowed against the spray. Daniel waded deeper, tying the rope around his chest. "Anu, they will not be left," he said firmly. A mother clutched her child across the bank, weeping. Lily tied the rope's end around her wrist, determination in her gaze. Marcus scoffed. "You drown for peasants." Daniel met his eyes. "I live for them." The river surged, pulling hard, but Daniel pressed forward, every step a vow in the torrent. War drums thudded from the ridge, while smoke rolled across the fields like a low tide. Daniel Ward checked his line twice, quiet and exact. Colonel Marcus Hale said, "Drive them before sundown." Lily Hart tightened her shawl and watched the orchards shiver. Evan Cross kept near Daniel, quill marks staining his fingers. Sophia Moreau traced roots in the mud with a twig, eyes distant. Daniel said, "We pull the families through the chapel and out the north lane." Marcus smiled thinly. "We take the bridge and write our legend." Wind rattled shutters and sent cinders spinning. Lily said, "Noise in the mill." Evan flinched and forced a nod. Daniel measured every face and heard the lie breathing between words. He said, "Hold formation and keep the lanterns low." The drums quickened like a verdict. The square became a stage where certainty strutted in polished boots. Marcus raised his arm and the ranks answered with steel. He said, "Glory belongs to the swift." Daniel Ward stood apart, measuring the rain-dark eaves and blind corners. Lily Hart whispered, "They are watching from the granary roof." Evan Cross unfolded a fresh dispatch, wax still warm. Sophia Moreau said, "That seal is not ours." Daniel fixed on Evan's hands and found tremor under resolve. He said, "Read it." Evan cleared his throat and recited positions that mirrored their own. Marcus laughed once. "Even our enemies know discipline." Daniel felt a hinge turn inside his chest. He said, "Or someone tells them." Lily looked down, as if the cobbles could answer. The ranks shifted, uneasy as animals before lightning. Night pressed low, and the granary rafters creaked like an old ship. Daniel Ward climbed a ladder, boots silent on splinters. Lily Hart waited below, lantern hooded to a slit. Evan Cross followed, breath tight, saying, "This is needless." Sophia Moreau drifted into shadow at the far wall. Daniel reached the loft and found chalk marks mapping their patrols. He said, "Someone rehearses our deaths." Boards popped under shifting weight. Marcus called from outside, "Report." Daniel held still and listened to dust sift from beams. He said, "If a friend can draw these, so can an enemy." Evan's reply snagged, "Then burn it." Daniel knelt and brushed the chalk, noting a symbol that matched the warm wax seal. He said, "Secrets wear the same handwriting as fear." The lantern guttered, and the dark leaned in. Dawn smeared the sky with pewter, as Daniel Ward gathered key voices in the chapel nave. Lily Hart set the lantern on the altar and watched flames steady. Sophia Moreau unrolled a faded chart and tapped the northern thicket. She said, "Ambush lines fit this bend." Evan Cross stood near the door, jaw tight. Marcus Hale entered with a cold grin. "You conspire while the day wastes." Daniel said, "We move the civilians through the brook path, not the bridge." Marcus scoffed. "You dodge destiny." Lily said, "You chase it with blinders." Sophia's eyes never left Evan's hands on the latch. Daniel turned pages of the dispatch and matched the chalk's curved symbol. He said, "This script repeats." Evan swallowed and stared at the floorboards. "Ow." Marcus barked, "Choose the bridge or abandon command." The bell rope ticked against wood, like a metronome of dread. The ridge path rose like a spine, slick with moss and old hoof scars. Daniel Ward led a small column, quiet as breath. Lily Hart kept step, eyes trained on hedgerows. Sophia Moreau drifted abreast, voice a thread. "Trust is a bridge you cross once." Evan Cross walked behind Daniel, fingers pressed to his sleeve where the last letter hid. Marcus Hale shadowed them with a squad that gleamed despite the rain. Daniel said, "We take the thicket and circle the orchards." Marcus said, "We charge the lane and finish this." Wind poured through the pines and shook water from every needle. Daniel halted at a fork where prints bled into mud. He said, "One path leads to victory, the other to mercy." Marcus laughed. "History forgets mercy." Daniel answered, "History is written by the living." The column waited as his choice gathered like a storm. The night carried a stillness heavy as iron, broken only by the crack of distant rifles. Daniel Ward studied the ridge, lantern glow faint on his face. Lily Hart whispered, "Someone follows us." Evan Cross stiffened, clutching his satchel tighter. Sophia Moreau melted from the shadows, her hood wet with dew, voice quiet but cutting. "You are hunted by your own." Colonel Marcus Hale strode forward, gaze sharp as steel. "Spies feed on weak links," Daniel said. "Then we find the hand guiding them." A rustle in the brush brought every musket raised. The figure who emerged was cloaked, face obscured, moving with deliberate calm. Lily gasped, fingers clutching Daniel's coat. Sophia said, "The shadow finally shows itself." The air held its breath as the stranger spoke words like a blade. "Your choices shape more than victory. They shape survival." A fire snapped in the orchard camp, sparks leaping like restless souls. Marcus Hale stood before his men, voice booming. "Strength rules history." Daniel Ward answered, "Fear is not strength." Lily Hart passed bread to children, her hands trembling yet steady. Evan Cross unfolded another sealed message, his face pale. Sophia Moreau leaned close, murmuring to Daniel. His words poisoned the air. Marcus's eyes gleamed in the firelight. "Mercy loses wars, ruthlessness wins them." Daniel said, "Then I would rather lose than bury innocence under victory." The soldiers murmured uneasily, their eyes drawn to the civilians nearby. The flames painted shadows long and sharp across broken wagons. Marcus snapped, "You defy me at every turn." Daniel replied, "I defy only what dishonors us." The fire hissed as rain began to fall, sparks vanishing into smoke. The forest path narrowed into a tunnel of branches dripping rain. Daniel Ward led with cautious steps, cloak soaked through. Lily Hart walked near, whispering prayers under her breath. Evan Cross lingered behind, eyes darting at every sound. Marcus Hale pressed close with impatience. "Your delays cost us time." Sophia Moreau bent to inspect a broken twig, murmuring, "Someone passed here recently." Daniel said, "We move slower, but we live longer." Marcus's sneer curled. Cowardice cloaked as wisdom. A raven flapped overhead, startling the line. Daniel gripped his musket tighter, jaw firm. Lily said, "I hear boots not our own." Evan's hand shook as he drew a folded map, sweat darkening the paper. Sophia's eyes narrowed. The trail betrays us. The rain thickened, turning mud into a trap beneath every step. They gathered inside a barn where hay bales leaned like tired walls. Daniel Ward spread a soaked map across a crate, candlelight wavering. Lily Hart brought water to frightened children huddled near. Evan Cross hovered at the door, listening to every creak. Marcus Hale slammed his fist on the table. We march at dawn, bridge or no bridge. Sophia Moreau shook her head slowly. Your bridge is a grave, Daniel said. There is another path, through the hollow field. Marcus snarled, only cowards take cover. Daniel replied, only fools ignore warnings. The barn shifted in the wind, rafters groaning. Lily whispered to a child, sleep if you can. Evan's lips pressed thin, a shadow of guilt flickering. Sophia touched the map's edge, voice calm. The truth is near, but not all will survive it. The candle sputtered, throwing faces into broken light. The night ended with a secret gathering by the ruined chapel steps. Daniel Ward stood firm, his voice low. We cannot serve victory and honor both. Lily Hart's eyes glistened in the torchlight as she clutched her satchel. Evan Cross trembled, folding a letter again and again. Marcus Hale sneered, blade flashing in the fire's glow. History spares no martyrs. Sophia Moreau stepped forward, gaze steady. History hides in shadows until the moment strikes. Daniel's breath fogged in the cold. I choose the living, he said. Marcus's glare promised blood. The torch hissed, smoke curling into the night air. A wolf howled far off, as though echoing the fracture between them. Evan's silence screamed louder than words. The betrayal's scent thickened like smoke, and Daniel knew the night would not end quietly. Rain drummed on the chapel roof, as Daniel Ward set a small brass seal on the altar. Lily Hart stared at it, eyes wide, breath unsteady. Sophia Moreau said, this crest belongs to the river charter. Marcus Hale circled like a hawk, boots clicking. Trifles, he said, dismissive. Daniel turned the seal and revealed a hidden hinge. A folded ribbon slid free, woven with the same curved symbol as the enemy dispatch. Lily whispered, my mother kept one like it. Sophia nodded, voice soft. It marks the heir of sanctuary rites. Evan Cross paled, glancing toward the door. Daniel said, sanctuary binds us to shield civilians. Marcus laughed once. No scrap of ribbon outranks victory. Lily touched the crest and flinched at its cold. If this is mine, the village answers to me. Daniel met her gaze. Then we defend them under law and oath. Thunder rolled like a gavel striking stone. Wind rattled the shutters while Sophia Moreau stepped into the nave light and unpinned her cloak. She said, I served your father once, Daniel. The words fell like coals. Daniel's jaw tightened, memories stirring. Sophia held up a weathered locket, its hinge cracked. He sent me to guard the charter when the last governor burned records. Marcus Hale scoffed. Fairy tales to stall my march. Lily Hart stood straighter, voice steady. If Sophia speaks truth, the charter shields the river families. Evan Cross shifted, guilt pooling in his eyes. Daniel said, why reveal this now? Sophia answered, because the air has shown her face. The bell rope tapped its slow rhythm. Marcus drew nearer, voice sharp. You choose relics over triumph. Daniel replied, I choose the promise that outlived the flames. Rain hissed along the sill, a whisper of old vows. The square roared with returning patrols as Marcus Hale mounted a wagon and lifted his saber. Enemy massing by the bridge, he cried. We strike now or choke on ash. Daniel Ward scanned the faces of families huddled under tarps. Lily Hart stepped forward, voice clear. Sanctuary forbids forced removal. Murmurs rippled across the ranks. Evan Cross unfolded a red-sealed order, hands shaking. Marcus pointed to the river smoke. They torch fields to starve you of courage. Sophia Moreau said, fear is their horse, not ours. Rain turned to needles in the wind. Daniel said, we evacuate through the hollow and hold the brook. Marcus grinned thinly. Defy me, and I name you traitor. The words struck like iron. Lily moved to the children and took 2 small hands. Daniel lifted his chin. I will carry the name you hurl, and I will carry them. In the granary loft, dust swirled like ghosts as Daniel Ward set a lantern between sacks of grain. Evan Cross stood opposite, color drained. I sent positions, he blurted. The lantern popped. Lily Hart drew a breath, eyes shining with hurt. Evan's voice cracked. They hold my brother. Each letter bought him days. Sophia Moreau's gaze softened, but stayed sharp. Who holds him? Evan looked at the floor. A courier mocked with the curved seal. Daniel said. Then Marcus knew or profited. The silence rang. Boards creaked under rain. Evan offered a bundle of copied maps, hands shaking. I can undo what I did. Lily whispered. Truth costs less than blood we cannot raise. Daniel placed a steady hand on the maps. Then we cut their eyes tonight. The lantern steadied, as if agreeing. Stormlight flashed over the ridge as Daniel Ward gathered his corps beside the broken cart. We blind the bridge guns and move the families now, he said. Marcus Hale stepped from the rain, smile like a wound. One charge wins this war. Stand aside. Lily Hart lifted the charter seal, its ribbon dark with water. Sanctuary stands, she said. Sophia Moreau slid a satchel to Daniel. Charges for the culverts, not the homes. Evan Cross tied a rope to his waist. I will cut their signal lines. The wind rose, the trees bowing like jurors. Marcus hissed, mercy writes eulogies, not history. Daniel met his eyes. Then let history keep its hunger. He turned to his people. Move. Thunder rolled long and low, as if the hills themselves answered. The choice was made, and it would burn or save them all. The storm broke as cannons thundered across the ridge, shaking the valley like a living beast. Daniel Ward sprinted through mud, voice raw. Hold the line by the brook. Lily Hart clutched the seal close, shielding children under a broken cart. Evan Cross cut at the telegraph wires with frantic strokes, sparks flying. Marcus Hale strode with his saber gleaming, shouting, forward, crush them. Sophia Moreau lit a fuse and shoved a charge into the culvert, calm amidst chaos. Rain turned every breath into steam. Soldiers clashed with steel, torches flickering in the wind. Daniel drove his men into cover, mud plastered across his face. Lily screamed as a cannonball split the bridge timbers. Evan's rope went taut, dragging him down into muck, yet he kept cutting. Marcus roared like thunder, blade high. Daniel said, stand. We shield them, or we fall with them. Lightning carved the sky, showing Marcus Hale standing atop the shattered bridge, coat whipping. He cried, history favors the ruthless. Daniel Ward staggered forward, musket clutched but unused. History forgets tyrants. Lily Hart shouted, family still crossing. Evan Cross hauled a child up by the rope, blood streaking his sleeve. Sophia Moreau whispered, now, and touched flame to a second fuse. Sparks hissed through rain, crawling toward powder. Marcus laughed, your mercy is their coffin. Daniel met his gaze and said, mercy is the only name worth bearing. Thunder swallowed the words as the charge blew, sending debris and spray into the night. Soldiers cried out, smoke swallowing the fight. Lily pulled the child close, whispering, breathe, you're safe. Marcus's glare burned through the haze, unbroken even as his ground trembled beneath him. The smoke thickened until figures blurred, every sound doubled by echoes. Daniel Ward pressed forward, boots sinking in ash-soaked mud. Evan Cross stumbled beside him, clutching his bleeding arm. Lily Hart called out, "Daniel, behind you!" Marcus Hale lunged through the fog, saber flashing, his voice sharp. "Traitor!" Daniel parried with bayonet, sparks showering. Sophia Moreau's shadow slipped along the flank, blade glinting under lightning. "He'll cut you down," she warned. Marcus drove him back, eyes burning. "You cannot protect them all." Daniel gritted his teeth. "I can try." Their blades locked, mud spraying as they strained. Lily shouted, "Hold fast!" Evan gasped, dragging himself to shield the wounded. The storm howled above, drowning prayers and curses alike. Daniel shoved forward, jaw clenched as firelight caught the steel between them. The clash rolled into the brook where water foamed red and coal. Daniel Ward forced Marcus Hale back step by step, their boots splashing. Lily Hart waded in, dragging two children out by their arms. Evan Cross collapsed against a log, his breath ragged. Sophia Moreau moved behind the lines, tossing a torch onto soaked crates to block pursuit. Marcus snarled, "Your honor kills more than my blade ever could." Daniel answered through clenched teeth, "Your victory is ash." Their blades crossed again, sparks leaping, thunder hammering the sky. Lily shouted, "Daniel, the children are clear." Evan coughed, "We can't hold much longer." Sophia hissed, "Fall back through the orchard." Marcus roared and shoved, blades slicing Daniel's coat. Daniel braced and struck, defiance in every line of his face. Thorm peaked with deafening fury as Marcus Hale raised his saber for a final blow. "Honor dies tonight," he spat. Daniel Ward met his eyes, muscles burning. "Honor lives while one breath resists you." Lily Hart cried out, holding the seal high, torchlight flickering on its crest. Evan Cross forced himself to his knees, clutching the last rope tight. Sophia Moreau lifted her dagger, ready to strike from the side. Marcus roared and swung, but Daniel twisted, driving his bayonet deep into the mud between them. Water sprayed like glass shards. Marcus stumbled, fury etched but faltering. Daniel stood over him, chest heaving, saying, "Your history ends here." The storm rolled on, and silence fell beneath its roar. Lily whispered, "He chose us." Evan's head dropped with exhaustion. Sophia's eyes softened briefly. Then shadow returned. The fight was done, but its cost clung to the air like smoke. Dawn rinsed the ridge in pale gold as smoke thinned to threads. Daniel Ward stood in the churned mud and counted the living. Lily Hart pressed the seal to her chest and breathed. Evan Cross wrapped his arm, face drawn with regret. Sophia Moreau watched the river road, eyes unreadable. Daniel said, "We move the families first." Lily answered, "They trust you." Evan whispered, "Let me make this right." Sophia said, "Right begins with truth." A child coughed, and the sound cut through the quiet. Daniel knelt and fixed a torn bootlace with calm hands. He said, "No one is left behind." Wind passed over broken timbers and made a soft hymn. The valley looked smaller now, as if fear had stepped away. Daniel rose and squared his shoulders to the work. The riverbank became a long procession of blankets, bandages, and whispered thanks. Daniel Ward lifted a stretcher, while rain glittered like thread. Lily Hart moved from face to face with a flask and a smile that steadied hands. Evan Cross logged names, voice low but sure. Sophia Moreau directed carts toward the hollow fields. Daniel said, "We share what we have." Lily replied, "And still it is enough." Evan murmured, "I kept accounts of harm. Today I keep accounts of mercy." Sophia nodded once and pointed to the far bend. "Watch the tree line." A bell tolled from the chapel ruins and rolled across the water. Daniel said, "When they can walk, we move." The river hissed over stones like a promise kept. Relief felt fragile, yet it held. They paused at the chapel steps where ash met wildflowers. A small crowd formed as Daniel Ward set the battered charter on a crate. Lily Hart said, "Sanctuary stands when we stand together." Evan Cross faced the people, voice firm. I failed you. I serve you now. Murmurs rose, not angry but tired. Sophia Moreau watched the edges where new dangers grow. Daniel said, we build a crossing in the hollow and post watches by the orchards. Lily squeezed his arm and nodded. Evan lifted a hand and asked for volunteers. Tools appeared like magic from cots and sacks. Sophia said, quiet work wins loud peace. A breeze carried the scent of wet grass and old smoke. The crowd moved with purpose, and fear loosened its grip. By noon, the hollow echoed with the rasp of saws and the thud of posts. Daniel Ward tied lines across the brook while mud cooled his boots. Lily Hart guided children to weave reeds into mats. Evan Cross mapped a watch rotation with careful marks. Sophia Moreau returned from the ridge with news. Scouts turned back. The road is ours for now. Daniel said, then we breathe and build. Lily smiled, small and fierce. Hope is heavier than fear, but it carries better. Evan folded his map and met Daniel's eyes. Thank you for letting me stay. Daniel answered, stay and stand. The brook flashed sunlight between shadows, as if winking at the labor. The work stitched the day into a steadier cloth. Evening drew long and quiet, as lanterns woke, one by one. Daniel Ward walked the lane, where smoke thinned into blue. Lily Hart rested on a cart step and watched the last children sleep. Evan Cross closed his ledger and set it beside the charter. Sophia Moreau stood at the fence, face lit by a small flame. Daniel said, the bridge will not remember us. Lily answered, they will. Evan smiled, weary and honest. History can learn a new hand. Sophia tipped her flame to a lamp and let the match die. Daniel stepped into the dusk, and the lane took him like a friend. He left no speech, only footprints drying in the wind. The quiet held him, and it held.